we'll be the host tonight for this panel discussion on career opportunities in healthcare informatics. Both of us are Institute Secretary Academic Affairs and heading Student Support Services in NPAR under UGAC. So hope you and your loved ones are doing well, and I welcome you to the panel discussion. As we all know, IIT Bombay is launching a new IEEE paid minor program starting from the academic year 2021-22. So to make students aware of the extensive career opportunities available in the domain, we have with us an extremely esteemed panel. All three of them are IIT alumni from varying backgrounds and pursuing different paths in the domain. We hope that this is an engaging and interactive session for each one of you. So I would like to start by introducing our panelists. We have with us Sandeep Gupta. He's a product manager at TensorFlow Google. He's an IITB alumni of the class of 1992. And he later did his PhD from Johns Hopkins University. He helped develop and drive the roadmap for TensorFlow, which is Google's open source library and framework for machine learning, for supporting machine learning applications and research. And before joining Google, he was the technology leader for a team at Global Electric Global Research, which focused on research and medical imaging and healthcare analytics. General Electric. Next, we have Vipin Gopal, the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Eli Lilly. He too is from the IITB class of 1992. He did his PhD from CMU and MBA from NYU Stern. He was previously the Senior Vice President of Analytics at Humana, a Future 100 health insurance company. Vipin is a 20-plus year veteran in the space of advanced data analytics and recognized as a 2018 Top 100 Innovator in Data Analytics, and was a recipient of the Analytics Leadership Award by Indiana University Kelley School of Business. And last but not the least, we have with us Rahul Panikar. He is a 2002 graduate from IIT Madras, and he did his PhD at Stanford University. Up until recently, he was the Chief Research and Innovation Officer at Vadvani Institute for Artificial Intelligence, a non-profit research institute developing AI solutions for social good. He is best known as the president and co-founder of Embrace Innovations. The social enterprise designs and brings to market healthcare technologies for developing world, starting with an infant warmer. So before going to the questions, I would just request to the audience to put in any questions you have for the panel in the chat box. And we'd like to also have an interactive session towards the end. So we encourage you to ask your questions then as well. And starting with my first question. So Sandeep, so could you tell us a little bit about your journey into healthcare informatics?
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here. I also hope that for everyone joining, you all are doing all right. Things are okay from a COVID standpoint. I mean, that's sort of the most important thing. So as far as I'm concerned, right, after graduating IIT, I went to Johns Hopkins for pursuing graduate school. And at Johns Hopkins, it's like such a center for anything to do with medicine, right? As a School of Medicine and biomedical engineering is highly regarded, with some really nice research programs that were going on there. So there was this new faculty member who was starting a brand new sort of research program in the field of medical imaging, working closely with radiology and biomedical engineering. So I definitely always wanted to have an applied bent, and instead of sort of pursuing like a more theoretical side of research in electrical engineering, I wanted to go down this path and sort of work in an area that you can see with some real world applications and be associated with the Hopkins School of Medicine. And then from there on, in life, a lot of things are just timing, right? So as I was graduating, GE Healthcare was setting up a huge sort of partnership with Johns Hopkins Hospital. And so it just naturally led to just things aligning, and I kind of embarked on this medical imaging and diagnostic analytics type of area.
Okay, yeah, that's a very interesting story. Vipin, so I would like to know that as a chemical engineer, out of all the opportunities available, how did you believe that healthcare informatics was the best way to go?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on the panel today. It's such a pleasure to be speaking to an IIT Bombay crowd. Like similar to Sandeep, we were in the same batch, a 1992 batch. After I finished my PhD, finished my undergrad in IIT Bombay, I did a PhD at Carnegie Mellon, and then I did my work, my PhD work, a lot in an applied math area. I spent the first 10 years of my career in R&D organizations of large companies, Honeywell and United Technologies Corporation. So after spending those 10 years, I was kind of wondering, what do I want to do next? So there was a Fortune 100 healthcare company, health insurance company, who wanted to start an analytics function. So they came to me and sort of said, "Hey, do you want to do this?" I said, I don't know much about healthcare or health insurance, but I'll take a chance, and I dove right in. So 15 years since, I've been in healthcare, data, and analytics. I think the key question is, why did I stay, right? Why did I spend the last 15 years in healthcare, data, and analytics? I think there are two things I would say to that question. One is the opportunity to make a difference. So healthcare is a field where data analytics and digital can make a huge difference. And I think we are still on the ground floor here. There is a huge upside potential. And the second is purpose. When you look at healthcare companies and bring our expertise and skill sets there, there is a purpose of making a difference in the lives of people around the world. Very fundamental, aspect of health and well-being of individuals. So in summary, if you had asked me, okay, what are you going to do after your BTech or PhD? Healthcare was probably not at the top of my list at that time. But I discovered, as Sandeep mentioned, I discovered healthcare on the way, and I've been fascinated by that. And I think, I've really enjoyed being in that space for the past decade and a half.
Yeah, all of us who are getting an opportunity to explore the field now, I think that is something which you surely can look forward to. Rahul, sir, would you like to tell about your journey into healthcare informatics?
Sure, happy to share. Yeah, I think sort of like Vipin said, when I finished my undergrad, I had no specific plans to go into healthcare. Had done some small projects during my BTech. During a grad school, again, what I did in grad school was to explore widely, right? When it comes to the trade-off of explore versus exploit, I decided that early on I'll explore and then I'll exploit later. And so explored widely. I did lots of screwy things at Stanford. I was active in the Bay Area IIT Madras Alumni Association. I used to be part of a religious roundtable. I used to take classes in philosophy and the business school, and spent time at the subatomic particle accelerator at Stanford, and so on. I got paid by Stanford for 4 years to throw parties. So among other things, I also, in my 5th year of grad school, when I should have been writing my thesis, I stumbled into the design school at Stanford, Stanford D School. And the Stanford D School is a magical place. It's a very fun place. And it teaches, see, as engineers, as technologists, we're generally taught how to solve problems. We're never taught where to find the right problems to solve. Right? And the D School was a lot about that, need finding, identifying the right problem, and then rapid prototyping, understanding, uncovering unarticulated needs, and so on. And realize that, and you always put people at the center of problem solving, right? Business and technology are ultimately means to solve people's problems. And it was purely coincidental that our class project there in grad school had to do with healthcare. I mean, the project I picked was in healthcare. It turned out we spun off a company called Embrace, where we developed incubators for premature babies that can work without electricity in developing countries. So my journey into, I had spent some time doing medical imaging, visualizations, and so on during and applying some adaptive signal processing algorithms as an electrical engineer in healthcare. But really, it's the Embrace journey that took me into healthcare, and that was fundamentally driven by the motive of how can we make a difference to large underserved populations in developing countries. And so Embrace was a for-profit social enterprise with the explicit mission of making a difference in the lives of underserved populations in developing countries. That was, I think, late 2009, early 2010. Was when I moved back to India, and so I guess I've been in healthcare for a little over a decade now, and it's been a very satisfying journey.
does surely serve as motivation for all of us to explore all the different opportunities we have with us. My next question is directed to Vipin sir. So the healthcare informatics domain is estimated to be worth $123 billion in 2025. So could you tell us why it has gained so much of prominence in recent times, and what are some of the developments in this field that you personally find very exciting?
Yeah. Great question. So when you sort of think about the field of healthcare, um, the complexity of modern medicine really exceeds the capacity of what I call the unaided human mind. So there is so much data and information that is generated in healthcare that no one human being or a physician or a group of human beings can really process that and generate the best set of insights and solutions. So that's where the role of health IT really sort of comes in. When it comes to, say, things like treatment or discovery of medicines, again, when you go back to the complexity and sort of the effectiveness of the work that human beings do, there is a huge role that human and machines can play together moving forward. So that paradigm will become increasingly important moving forward. The other aspect, if you were to think about the efficiency of the system, healthcare systems have a lot of inefficiencies in them. And when you think about the amount of paper that's there, amount of information that is not even captured anywhere, the role of health IT to increase the efficiency of healthcare systems is huge. So if you think about the GDP of the world, 10% of the GDP of the world GDP is spent on healthcare. So that's a lot of money that's being spent on healthcare. So how can we make that more efficient is the other aspect that's a driver. And the third, but not necessarily the least important thing, is around the experience of customers and patients. Right. So you may go to a hospital system or a physician, you may get treated, but what is the experience that a person is having? And again, from that point of view, there is a huge change in terms of the expectations of patients that is coming in. So there are multiple factors that is driving the role of health IT broadly. And the other thing is, I think many businesses in the healthcare domain, the business models are fundamentally changing. So how a healthcare company runs today or tomorrow will be very different from how it was run yesterday. So I'll give you an example of that. There was a chief medical officer of a large health insurance company who said, "We're not a health insurance company anymore. We are a data analytics company." So that is coming from somebody who is in the field of medicine. And so that is the change that is happening in the healthcare domain, where IT or larger sort of information technologies are really revolutionizing and reinventing what it means to be a healthcare organization or a business. So, there are lots of exciting things that are happening. You asked me about, an example of something that I find very exciting. One data point I would give is DNA sequencing. DNA sequencing, first time it was done, it took about $1 billion and 13 years, right? Now you can do this with less than $100 and in an hour. So I bring that up as an example of something that I'm very excited about, because think about the possibilities of the data that is generated through that process in making a difference in the health of individuals, and understanding the overall possibilities of how to identify potential risks and how to treat conditions, and the tremendous amount of data that's being generated from healthcare is what I am really most excited about, and the possibilities with that.
That's sure. That's certainly a very different perspective that we don't usually get to hear. Thank you so much for that. My next question is directed towards Sandeep, sir. So most of the students and even most of all of us so do not have any exposure to healthcare. So what could be the motivation for a student who has no prior knowledge or interest in healthcare to pursue this further?
Yeah, that's actually a very, very relevant question, specifically here speaking at IIT Bombay, right? And all of us being from engineering backgrounds. So I think, so two parts to your question, right? First, for the motivation or interest, I honestly believe that healthcare field is one that is much easier to motivate and get sort of, like real drive to work in this area, simply because the impact is so apparent to all of us, right? We all deal with healthcare. We all have family members who deal with healthcare issues. We have had variety of occasions when we see, what we think is sort of the healthcare system not working like it should be working. So I think the motivation sort of fundamentally comes from there, right? As Rahul was saying earlier, uh, the way you see something making a difference, right? So I think that's a huge part of it. Uh, the other thing I'll say is that as you are going through education and you are learning foundational courses and acquiring sort of core skills in whether it's AI or machine learning or whether it's signal processing or whatever field of engineering you might be, when you start applying it to a real world problem, right, and get that practical side of things, that okay, what is the problem that can be solved with these technologies, how can we make a difference, I think that's what makes that education much more real, and it stays with you longer, it stays with you in a deeper sense. So I think that's where the motivation comes from. Now, as far as prior knowledge is concerned, I mean, unfortunately, right, we have all gone through this, where there is this bifurcation. You're either doing physics, chemistry, bio, or you're doing physics, chemistry, math. It's almost like the bio world and the math world are like two different roads that you have to be on, and you can only be on one. I think that has changed completely for many of the reasons that Vipin was just describing. So now, absolutely, to do something in bio or healthcare, having an analytical and engineering background is such a big asset that you all coming from these technical backgrounds, you will find that picking up a field such as medicine or healthcare is not as hard as it might seem, right? The jargon can be tricky, but as you start putting yourself in the field and you start, doing things and reading papers and reading books, it is quite approachable. So you shouldn't sort of shy away from a lack of knowledge. I think that you will pick as you go along and start solving problems.
Thank you, sir, for such a great answer. My next question is directed to Rahul, sir. Sir, could you give a perspective about a high-level picture of different career prospects that a student can pursue in healthcare informatics?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a big field. I'd say, as with any industry, many layers to it, right? And I'll give you sort of some samplings of it. You can go very close to clinical care, right? Building tools that help in a clinical setting or helps a patient directly, right? There's any number of people who make devices, apps, combinations of them, right? You can go one step up, and there's huge needs for healthcare informatics tools and administrative processes, right? You abstract that a little further, and you see that healthcare beyond the individual is also a systems level problem. So how do you solve healthcare problems at a systems level? You look at epidemiology, data flows, personnel, keeping their knowledge updated. For example, India, as an example, does not have any mandatory requirement of continuing medical education. How do you know that your caregivers are actually practicing the latest evidence-based protocols where medical knowledge is actually progressing so fast, right? And you can keep abstracting this higher and higher. Regulatory systems, for example. Again, you in this day and age, you want to be data driven about these systems, either in the design process or in the development process or post deployment. Insurance, huge sectors, right? many ways to slice and dish. And then beyond this, of course, you go to national level and WHO, and at those scales, you can see different levels of abstraction. It's the JPEG image that loads at different resolutions. You can keep zooming, or think of it like Google Earth. You can zoom out at different levels, and there's healthcare problems at all these levels. That's just one lens to slice things from. And then I think you heard some other perspectives from Vipin and Sandeep, that you can also go by sector. You can go all the way from genomics and to genomics being close to materials, drug discovery, and so on, to, for example, radiology understanding, NLP. So you can also slice and dice by technology. And in fact, ultimately, where you operate will be at some intersection of these. And you can see the permutations and combinations are numerous.
Okay, thank you, sir, for such a good answer. Sir, my next question is again directed to you. Like, there are a lot of healthcare-based startups which are coming up, and you are also someone who promoted social entrepreneurship, took part in it, and have your own company. So could you tell the current state of the data-driven tech-based startups in the healthcare sector, as well as what exactly the potential is there in the future? How exactly can students from IIT Bombay, students from engineering background can look at this as a field somewhere they can pursue entrepreneurship in?
Right. Yeah. And I can start. I can touch upon some points here, but my co-panelists, I'm sure, also have rich information to provide. So I'd invite them to add. Some examples. I think in India, again, lots of opportunities, lots of challenges. Opportunities exist in large companies. So there are tech companies doing this. There are insurance companies looking at health informatics within India. So tech companies like IBM, Microsoft, Google, they're all looking at this, right? Even within India. There are insurance providers looking at this. There are hospital chains looking at how to make sense of their and then there's of course the startup world. So you have your Map My Genomes, you have your Cure AI. Cure AI is an IIT Bombay startup, right? Great companies, they're doing fantastic work. And so lots of opportunities. And this is the Indian context. And lots of challenges as well, by the way, because, for example, in India, we still have uncertain regulatory environments, the conflicts of interest that exist in private healthcare, where a doctor is not just a caregiver, but also a businessman. And that actually, in fact, impacts the quality of care as well as what that means to a technology provider, right? Are you optimizing for the doctor? Are you building a product for the doctor? Or are you building a product for the patient? They're not always the same thing, by the way. And sometimes it's unpleasant truths. And all the way to now we're talking about the health stack at a national level, and lots of interesting opportunities opening up because of that. And then globally, of course, there's very exciting work happening with drug discovery, genomics, and so on. Combination of the advancements in materials, chemistry, computation, right? Daphne, I'm reminded of my former professor, Daphne Kohler, and she runs InSitro. And their goal is to sort of, automate drug discovery and eventually, to push out aging, right? So many ambitious goals possible. But I invite Sandeep and Vipin to please add.
Yeah, I'll just quickly say one thing. Rahul pointed out a lot of these opportunities. Specifically for the startup ecosystem, I will say that this is an area where now, because one, more and more data is becoming available. Two, techniques like AI and ML have become sort of so democratized, right? So the barrier to doing something like this is not very, very high. So what you're finding is there's a lot of niche opportunity, right? If you identify the right problem and you identify sort of some key element of how you can address it, you can have like hugely impactful businesses that potentially you could be starting. And unlike, let's say, big pharma or the large diagnostic imaging companies where there is a ton of capital investment required, there are so many domains in healthcare informatics which do not need that, and that's why I think you're seeing so much of this startup activity. So I think, yeah, there's like lots of opportunities in this area.
Vipin sir, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I agree with what Rahul and Sandeep have said. When you look at the investments in AI and ML, there was a report that was actually published by Stanford last year, where the startup ecosystem, the area that received the largest funding was in drug discovery, and compared to all other areas. And I agree with Sandeep that a lot of this is democratized, and if you have an idea, and if you want to pursue that idea, the barriers for you to get in are not very high. And then, of course, there are many other aspects of the healthcare ecosystem where startups are coming up every single day. And the important aspect of that trend is that it is a signal that healthcare as a whole is going to be revolutionized and disrupted moving forward. I mean, the startup ecosystem is very much a signal for that. And that's where the huge opportunity and potential and the excitement in this space really lies.
If I may add, there's, we talk about the large amounts of data now becoming available, and that offering opportunity. I will add one, given that we have lots of students here, I will add one word of caution. I don't know how many of you know, it's a story that was shared with me by Dr. Abhay Bang. Dr. Abhay Bang and Dr. Rani Bang, they're in Gadchiroli in Maharashtra, which is Naxal headquarters. And if you haven't heard of them, look them up. They're people I consider living saints. And Dr. Bang had the story of, it's an old Nasiruddin Hoja story of searching under the light, right? You lose, basically you find this man searching under the light bulb, and what are you looking for? I lost my ring. Where did you lose it? Oh, I lost it at home. Why are you searching here? Because there's no light at home. I'm searching under the light here, right? Going where the data is can sometimes be like that. And unfortunately, I've seen that. And so at the Vadvani Institute, for example, for lots of real meaningful problems, the data doesn't exist. And therefore, one does have to go create the data. And we've had to do that multiple times for whether it's maternal health, child health, tuberculosis, lots of diseases, we have to create the data sets. Healthcare informatics is still in that era where that work needs to be done. And so don't hesitate to roll up your sleeves and do that.
Thank you, sir. That was a really good suggestion. Sir, Vipin, sir, as you said that the funding in the healthcare or the drug discovery field has been the maximum in the last year. And last year, as we have seen the COVID-19, the concentration towards the pharmaceutical and biotech companies have risen a lot. So, sir, what do you feel healthcare informatics have played a role in the sector of pharmaceuticals and biotech companies, and how exactly has it revolutionized that field?
Okay. Let me maybe give you a forward-looking perspective, right? And then think about what are the fundamental metrics associated with the pharma industry. So pharma industry, when you look at taking a drug from discovery to market, the average time it takes to take a drug from discovery to market is 10 years. And the average cost of taking a drug to market is $2.5 billion. It's roughly 20,000 crores. And the other metric one has to think about is if you look at a drug that enters phase 1 trials, clinical trials, the chances of it eventually getting into market is just 12%. So that means that 88% of the drugs really fail through that process. So I am sort of providing you this frame because I strongly believe if you look at the metrics of the industry, 10 years, 20,000 crore rupees, 12% success rate, how do you actually impact that in a positive direction? If you can get a drug into the hands of the patients faster than 10 years, it is good for the patients. It is good for the industry because it gets additional revenue. If the success rate of a drug going from phase 1 to the market is more than 12%, that means they're investing in drugs that are eventually making a difference. So I do think moving forward, these are the metrics that are resulted from the traditional way of running the pharmaceutical business. So moving forward, it is where I think AI, ML, and related technologies will make a difference in terms of understanding, which drugs are actually going to make a difference, so that you're not investing in the wrong drugs. Understanding how can you run, and we all saw that over the last year, the need to get something into the market, a treatment or a vaccine into the market during COVID, right? I mean, it is not an easy thing. So again, the role of health IT or the overall health data and analytics is going to be hugely impactful in addressing some of these fundamentals in the pharma industry, because I think that's a big picture that I think this group should be excited about in terms of making a difference and in an industry that's been long-standing.
Thank you, sir. Like, there's also a question in the chat that what is the scope of healthcare informatics in working with homeopathy and Ayurveda? Like, this has been something which has proven to be very influential in the Indian markets, especially. So if someone wants to comment on that.
I'll maybe start on that, and then of course Rahul, you can. So the healthcare informatics is fundamentally a framework, right? So it is not tied to any type of medicine. So when you think about healthcare informatics, it is about data that you generate in the process, and then learning from that data, using that data to make better decisions and treatment choices. So again, I'm not an expert in homeopathy or Ayurveda, but I think the framework, there is no reason why the framework could not be applied in different contexts. So Rahul?
Yeah, as far as Ayurveda goes, ultimately it comes down to having certain active ingredients that make a clinical difference. And the opportunity exists to bring the scientific method to evaluating Ayurvedic drugs, isolating active ingredients. And there are actually Ayurvedic drugs that have side effects, right? Because you know what? The greatest toxins known to mankind are natural. They're not synthetic. The deadliest toxins we know are actually natural. And plants have lots of toxins. So by applying the scientific method, you have the opportunity to maximize the good that you get from nature and actually minimizing the bad. And so, like Vipin said, the framework available through the scientific method, and especially in health informatics, what health informatics offers, can be applied to Ayurveda. I have the privilege of being a speaker, and I'll use that privilege to make a rather blunt statement. In my homeopathy, in my view, is just pseudoscience. Go back to the fundamentals of what homeopathy claims to be. It's that you dilute things more and more till eventually it's so dilute that you may not even have one molecule of an active ingredient, and that's supposed to be the most potent. So in my own view, homeopathy is pseudoscience, and so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, sir. Like that, I guess that might have cleared the doubt from the audience. Now, I might have a question for Sandeep, sir, as he was really very keen on the growth of artificial intelligence and the machine learning part. Like a lot of students in IIT Bombay, as we have discussed earlier, are interested in the field. And then channelizing that knowledge of yours, that knowledge of these students into a very growing as well as a peculiar field of healthcare informatics. How has that helped you, and how is that so relevant to the students of IIT Bombay, and why should they do it? Like, if you could comment on that specifically.
Yeah. So AI ML, like this is like one of the hottest buzzwords right now, right? And everyone is trying to get into this field. People are learning basic skills in artificial intelligence and machine learning, and there's a lot of excitement, and a lot of that is for good reason, right? I mean, I think certainly we are seeing huge impact on all kinds of things, transportation, beyond not just healthcare, but in sustainability, accessibility, transportation, energy. So AI ML is really changing how we pursue solving problems in many domains. One risk with this, though, is that it is easy to get sort of carried away by the hype and sort of treat it like a hammer, right? And so there's this sort of like, I have a hammer, I'm going to apply it no matter what I'm trying to solve, and also sort of succumb to its black box nature, right? Where yes, I got some result, I don't really understand what happened or why it worked or how well it is going to work or when will it not work, but still I'm going to use it. So this is where I think, understanding the domain and what you are trying to solve and what the real world criteria are, factors are, limitations are, or important, risk factors are. So that bridge is extremely important. And what I'm finding in my career is that people who can bridge that gap from the AI ML sort of, the mathematical methods and models to a deep understanding of the domain and trying to then identify when do I use it and how do I use it and how do I augment it with other techniques, other classical domain-based techniques. So in the field of image processing, for example, right, instead of blindly trusting the features that pop out of AI, can I help the AI method by doing some feature extraction? These are all things that are really important, and they will make the difference between success and failure, or semi-success, in my opinion. So I think healthcare informatics is a perfect example of that.
Thank you, sir. I think that was something which is relevant a lot to the students of IIT Bombay. Could you tell us a little bit about your work at GE Global Research and how are companies using the insights from?
Okay, Rahul sir wants to add something. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Add something
Sorry,
to, I mean, what Sandeep said. I mean, all completely valid, right? What Sandeep said. I think there's also real opportunities in the future of, most of you know this, pretty much all of machine learning today stands at the level of associative reasoning, right? They're all correlational. And there's plenty of problems, such problems to solve in healthcare. So a lot of image understanding is about that, for example. But fundamentally, in healthcare, you do want to answer causal questions, right? You want to know what mechanisms, disease mechanisms are. You want to know if I give this drug, what will be the effect, right? All of deep learning as it stands today is purely associational. Deep learning cannot tell us if symptoms cause disease or disease cause symptoms. It depends on what you give as input and output, right? And so there's also great opportunities that exist in furthering AI methods themselves to address the needs of healthcare. So you need causal reasoning. There are RL methods possible in, for example, personalized healthcare, in having actual personalized healthcare, low sample rate interventions. A lot of public health has the opportunity to use agent-based methods and so on. So there are healthcare does offer a test bed to also push the frontier of AI technology.
Thank you, Rahul sir, for those insightful additions. Sandeep sir, would you like to answer my previous question? Like, could you tell us about your work at GE Global Research? And how has the insights from healthcare informatics helped companies to develop newer products?
Yeah, so GE is a large company with businesses across diagnostic imaging and devices and even life sciences and other areas. My work specifically was initially very much imaging focused, but then branched out into other fields where we were looking at electronic medical record data as well as a lot of physiological and clinical and genomics data. I think GE, just like any other healthcare company, sort of realized that the key sort of big drivers in healthcare were sort of cost, quality, and access. So everything that we were developing, right, it became it boils down to coming up with technology or new tools or new solutions that either aid the clinician or sort of the provider, or help the patient, or help sort of the back-end healthcare system, right? So like a hospital or a payer system or a provider system, to help improve some part of this cost quality access equation. So for access, for example, we were working on a lot of things related to how can the machines become, the usability become so much easier that you don't have to rely on expert knowledge to operate a piece of equipment. And that is very, very important, right? In rural areas where you don't have trained staff available or technologists available, you want your methods to work for fetal health or maternal health. There are many applications in this area. In traditional sort of conventional clinical workflow, it's all about getting to better insights. So errors are reduced, or time wasted in sort of just like putting patients down very mechanical decision trees. You eliminate that and you personalize that so that you get to the right decision faster. So these were lots of ways that GE was doing this. We were building partnerships with other types of companies, with IVD companies or with pharma or with other researchers to get the right type of data to help even inform products where we conventionally would not have seen this type of data.
Okay, thank
And
you,
I can
sir,
give sort
for
of
the
lots of
insight.
examples, yeah. But there are many examples in these areas that show how we moved from conventional sort of engineering way of solving problems to this kind of more informatics driven or informatics rich problem solving.
Okay, thank you, sir, for the great insight. Sir, but you shifted to the TensorFlow after the GE Global. So how did your knowledge in the healthcare informatics help you here also in every job, or is it like something? What experience do you share in common between the two of your job experiences?
Yeah. And that was like a big jump for me on many different levels, right? From sort of the field I was in and the type of technology that I was interacting with, as well as the culture and the environment of the companies. I certainly want to share this with all of you students who are listening. So you will find many times in your life, and Vipin's journey and Rahul's journey is an excellent example of that as well, that once you have the confidence that and the desire to learn something, right, changing fields and doing something different is much less daunting than it seems initially. And so one thing I'll tell you is that as you go through your education in IIT, you are learning whatever respective fields you are in. But the most important thing you are learning, in my opinion, is that you are learning to learn. And once you sort of get that confidence that, yes, I can pick up new things and I can learn and I can sort of refresh myself, then every new field becomes like a nice green field and an opportunity. Now, the transition to Google as a product manager, product manager is all about fundamentally understanding users, fundamentally understanding users' needs, and then coming up with a systematic way or a very objective way of figuring out how you might go about addressing those user needs. And so those skills from my education at IIT, as well as from my experience at GE, they definitely carried over to this field. It's just that I went deeper in the ML systems and software side of things.
Okay, yes, that certainly gives us an idea. I mean, how the domain knowledge has helped you as a product manager at TensorFlow. I had a similar question for Vipin, sir. How can the domain knowledge of healthcare informatics contribute to the careers of a student who wants to make a career in data science or ML or AI?
Yeah, great question. So one of the observations that I've had during my career is you would find a lot of people who are trained primarily in the healthcare space, physicians and other clinical scientists and so on and so forth. And they don't have much of a knowledge of the technology side. And then you will find technologists who are learning the healthcare side. I would sort of say I would put myself in that. When I started in the healthcare industry, I was learning healthcare. Other than being a consumer of health insurance and healthcare, I did not have much of an domain knowledge of healthcare as a domain, and I had to learn it. But what is unique? What the industry of the future needs are people who understand both. People who can go deep in both areas, right? So for this group here, the IITians on the call, fundamentally you will be learning the technology side, the engineering side, And if you can get that deeper healthcare domain expertise, that is going to be a combination that is going to be unique and valuable moving forward, because this space is booming. And as I said, 10% of world's GDP is really sort of spent on healthcare. And then the role of health IT is going to be central to the space moving forward. And then so when you look at that space, that skill set that understands both worlds and being able to marry both these domains is going to be important. And the key thing is to be able to speak the language. When you're sitting across with physicians and people who have grown up in the healthcare domain, to be able to speak that language, but also having a solid footing in technology is extremely important. And that, I think that's where I think some formal education and coursework in understanding healthcare and healthcare informatics from more on the healthcare side is going to be extremely important skill set to have moving forward.
Yeah, that surely gives us an insight into how an interdisciplinary approach is going to help the students. My next question is for Rahul, sir. So, could you share two or three biggest ideas that you feel are going to revolutionize the healthcare domain in the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, I'll call out like a few trends maybe that are happening, right? And it's these trends. It's these trends that are sort of waves that one rides. One certainly is widespread connectivity and compute means that healthcare can come much closer to the patient. So one avenue for a lot of innovation that exists is can you de-skill healthcare? What could one day be done only by a specialist doctor, can it be done by a generalist doctor? What could one day be done by only a doctor, can it be done by a nurse or a healthcare worker? What could only be done in a clinical facility, can it one day be done by the patient themselves or a family member, right? And it doesn't have to be all of it. If 80% of it can be brought closer to the patient, can you de-skill it, right? And there, information technology has a huge role to play, because after all, a lot of healthcare, other than interventional procedures, a lot of healthcare is about decision making, right? Informed decision making, and so there's tremendous opportunities there. At a structural level, yes, as both Vipin and Sandeep have alluded to, the explosion of data, right, means that there will be plenty of opportunity, and the opportunities will not just be in using that data to generate new insights. In my view, the space of healthcare informatics is somewhere in the early to mid 90s of the internet, right? The internet doesn't really exist in health informatics. We still haven't figured out interoperability. We don't have common standards, right? I mean, I could keep going, but you see the analogy, right? So, and till we have, till the internet exists, you can't have a Google, right? It will be a rough ride. So there are also, so in health informatics, therefore, you drawing the analogy of the internet, you need the router companies, you need the companies making various stacks. So all the gritty backend work also needs, there's a lot of work that needs to be done there, and there's lots of opportunities there as well. And then finally, as Vipin said, accelerating the speed of the pace of discovery in healthcare. Again, tremendous opportunities there. Augmenting that capability with modern computational techniques, huge potential there. These are the big ones I'll call out. I'll also add maybe one more thing, which is lots of new sensors coming out. And so using decentralized, wearables and passive sensors and ambient sensors and things like that, using all those sensors to actually make fundamentally new things possible. If you go back, a lot of fundamental breakthroughs in science have occurred when fundamental new sensing technologies have become possible. If you go back to chemistry or physics or biology, it's imaging technologies, sensors and so on that have enabled fundamental progress in science. And that is also happening in medicine.
Let me just let me add one more quick thing there. So I think sensors and all this, personalized medicine, access, a lot of things Rahul talked about. One interesting thing is that as people become more informed and start to sort of take more control of their healthcare and their wellness, right? You'll find more and more areas where healthcare will move not just about taking care of acute disease or something, something has gone wrong and now we need to address it. It will become much more of this continuous thing of trying to address your wellness and intervening early. And so one of the trends that I'm seeing is a nice analogy is from the entertainment industry, right? So think about how we used to watch movies, right? There were a small number of network TV channels. Some network professional somewhere is deciding what movie I get to watch when, and then I watch it. And now there are things like Netflix or there is Spotify for music, right? So you subscribe to a service. I have a lot of choice. I am in control of what I do when. Similar things are beginning to happen in healthcare. In US now, a place which doesn't change easily in terms of healthcare, there are these subscription-based insurance plans where I can subscribe to an insurance and then I get like an unlimited menu of things to choose for, and I'm in control of what I do when. So all of these types of things will also fundamentally change how healthcare gets practiced.
Thank you, sir, for the insight. I would really like to ask the similar question to Vipin, sir, is like, what are some 2-3 ideas in your mind which is going to revolutionize the healthcare technology, or which is revolutionizing healthcare technology and which the students can focus upon?
Yeah, I think as Rahul and Sandeep mentioned, personalization of care is going to be a key trend moving forward. I mean, every individual is different, but the care that we get is not necessarily tailored to us. And making personalization of care happen is going to be one significant trend over the next 5 to 10 years. The second thing is around what I call patient centricity, and the ability to get care based on where you are. So today, if you want to get care, you go to a hospital or a doctor's office. But with the digital ecosystem that we built or is being built now and will be built over the next 5 to 10 years, you may be able to get care in your homes. And you don't necessarily, so the healthcare is coming to you, the patient or the customer, as opposed to the patient or the customer going to where the healthcare services are delivered. And then Sandeep mentioned this, the continuum of, if you look at the healthcare today, it is largely what you call sick care. It's treatment after you get sick. But that sick care is going to be, I think, when you sort of look at the overall spectrum, there will be more preventive care that will be occupying the resources of the system. So that's actually some of the work that I led at Humana, which is a large health insurance company in the US, was based on shifting the focus to preventive care, the whole notion of predict and prevent. So, can you predict that somebody is going to be at risk for having a fall? A senior person is going to have a fall. Can you predict that somebody is going to get worse in their diabetes or even actually get diabetes? So can you predict if somebody is going to need a hospitalization moving forward? So if you can predict that, and that's where I think a lot of the analytical methods can make a huge difference, you can take the steps to prevent it, because nobody wants to be going to the hospital. If we can prevent the cause that is needing a person to go to the hospital, that is a much better solution than treating a person after they are in the hospital, right? So the notion of predict and prevent is going to be more and more. And of course, with all of the data that is being generated about an individual. So I think the healthcare system as a whole is going to be very, very different. I mean, if you think about Ubers and the transportation, I mean, what that change that happened there was customers now in control. The customer is saying, okay, I need a cab and this is where I need to go. And the cab is coming to you. You can take that notion and say, in healthcare, I need care to come to the patient as opposed to the other way, and put patient in the center. So a lot of the notions that are there in other industries will come to healthcare. And I do think there are many dimensions of change that will happen. But one of the common things that I see in many of these dimensions, and I don't say that this is the only thing, but I think there's a common theme is around the role of data analytics and digital in all of these transformations that will happen. And that's why the program that IDB is putting together is going to be central. The content is going to be such relevant to the future transformation of healthcare.
Thank you, sir, for the insight. Just a follow-up question on the same, that it was from the audience, that now the IEEE program on healthcare informatics is going to come up, and like a lot of people are going to opt for it and then graduate as someone from healthcare informatics. So what should be the first step they should take after graduating to have a career in healthcare informatics, or what exactly fields they can explore in healthcare informatics after that? Firstly, like a question to all three of you.
I can start, and then maybe Rahul and Vipin can join as well. So I think, Vipin really nicely highlighted and linked all of the things we have talked about to this program in his sort of last comment, right? And I really like that. I really like that comment. I think as you graduate from this program, you will have lots of different opportunities to choose from. Certainly, you can go down the path of further education and research to learn more about some specialized area of work. So one thing I like to suggest is that use the BTech degree with this particular program as an opportunity to go abroad, but then figure out what is the area that really you are interested in or speaks to you, and then sort of try to go deeper into a certain area, because this area is extremely vast, right? So you can sort of pick that way. The other thing is, from working in health tech companies, large companies, the traditional technology companies who are all doing something in healthcare, to working with startup ecosystem that we were talking about earlier, or working more in sort of the life sciences side of things, or devices and diagnostics. I think there's lots of different industries that one can go in. There'll be pure informatics and data-driven startups that Rahul was mentioning earlier. So there are lots of different choices that one could choose. You could also look at the business side of healthcare and sort of go in that direction a little bit, sort of looking at the whole healthcare system. So those are some ideas. I invite sort of Rahul and Vipin to share their thoughts.
Yeah, I think what you will get with this program are the fundamentals. And as Sandeep said, IT education also gives you the skill set to learn, right? And so once you sort of get the fundamentals, I would say get started where your passion lies, because healthcare is a vast area, and don't be concerned that where you get started is going to be defining you. Because where you get started is going to get you the experience to do more and more in different aspects of healthcare. Because healthcare, when you look at the various entities in healthcare, hospital systems, pharma companies, insurance companies, medical device companies, and so on and so forth, the opportunities are vast. And getting more and more experience, spend some time, if you're doing internships, or spend some time talking to people in the industry and continue to learn. But the key thing is to get started at some point in this industry so that you can learn more. Experience matters, and also don't be afraid to take risks. One thing, if I can offer from my perspective, is that I did take some risks in my career when I started in healthcare. As I said, that is a career risk for me, sort of jumping into an industry that I didn't know anything about. But you also be different. You'll have some grounding and you'll have some fundamentals in the space. Taking some risks and pursuing the ideas and the passions that you have, don't be hesitant to do that.
I'd say a few things. One, just going back to, I do believe that while such a program will give you a broad introduction to something like something as vast as healthcare informatics, I think there will be much further you will have to go to get a feel for what healthcare is about and healthcare informatics about. I do suspect that you won't have a true feel for what goes on in healthcare till you've spent enough time in a healthcare setting where you've seen patient care happen, right? Where you've seen procedures happen, or and you won't have enough of a sense of what the business ecosystem is like till you've actually ever tried selling a product, right? So in the and unfortunately, those are not things that you can have too much of in an academic environment at, say, an IIT, right? So I would encourage you to sort of, during your training itself, explore outside the institute, right? Within healthcare settings, within businesses, and see sort of how things play out. And then, as Sandeep said, the opportunities, there's many places that you can play in, right? Your challenge will be figuring out what you are interested in, where you see opportunity, and what you're good at, and or the usual intersection of your skills and what's needed out there and what you find purpose in, and so on, right? And that there, I like what Vipin said, which is at some point you have to dive in, right? You can't be a window shopper forever. At some point, go around the store, right? But early on in your career, explore widely, right? You will be better informed. You will even be better informed about your dislikes. That's good information to have early on.
I would like to ask a follow-up regarding what Rahul sir just said. So, as you said that we don't know about health informatics yet, or we haven't been exposed to it a lot. So, what areas a student who is interested in what areas can they consider pursuing a career in healthcare informatics? I mean, anyone could. Question is to all three of you.
Sorry, I lost connection for a bit.
It'll be good to repeat the question.
Yeah, I'll just repeat my question. So, as I said that we haven't yet been exposed to healthcare informatics or anything about healthcare. And so we probably don't know whether we are interested in that or whether we would like to pursue a career in the same. So, could you just point out some of the areas that the students might be interested in, and then correspondingly they can consider pursuing a career in this domain, or they could have a good chance of liking, or they would want to pursue having a career in this domain.
I can take sort of one, at least I can give you one example, right? So, many of you, if you are already looking at coursework related to data science or AI and ML, what you find generally in those classes is that you solve sort of, I don't want to say necessarily toy problems, but you solve very canned problems, right? So like, for example, the handwritten digit recognition with machine learning models or standard NLP type models for understanding text. I think by taking a few courses in healthcare informatics, you will start to begin to apply those techniques to data that comes from a different domain, right? You will start to apply it to different types of data or unstructured data. And then you will start to see what does it take to make a method work in that type of scenario. And I think that's the sort of exposure that then will let you go deeper and deeper over time as you start to figure out that, okay, I cannot just directly solve this type of a problem with techniques that I've learned in my book in some of the other domains. We need to actually do something different, right? And so that can be sort of like a gentle introduction to the practical world of healthcare informatics. The other thing I can suggest is, as Vipin was saying, look for opportunities for internship, look for opportunities for industry partnership, and then try to apply your engineering knowledge in the context of some problem that one of these entities is trying to solve.
Yeah, I will add to that. Great point, points, Sandeep. I would say, even when you're doing your current coursework, you may have the options to do some projects within your current courses, and select a healthcare project to do those healthcare topic to do those projects. It'll give you some exposure to the kind of topics and problems that are available in healthcare. The other good benefit or opportunity that you may have is there are a lot of public data sets that are available for healthcare problems. When you're looking at AI, ML problems, and if this is of interest to you, explore those data sets and look at the kind of problems and data that is available. Apply what you know, what you have learned so far. That'll give you a feel for it. And I think there is also an aspect of talking to people who are in this field, right? I mean, you're talking to three of us today, and we are sharing our perspectives. People like us who have been in the healthcare informatics space would be able to give you additional perspectives. And I think those are all valuable as well. And self-learning, search for and read about what are the hot topics in healthcare today and moving forward.
Shruti?
I think that's Rahul sir's mic.
Oh, sorry, I'm back. Sorry, my apologies. I didn't realize that I was unmuted. Yeah, I would echo I think most of what Vipul and Sandeep said, and I think Vipul articulated it well, which is fundamentally there's a lot of material out there. Read. It's a quick way to actually get to know what's out there. Talk to people. And that's again a cheap way to quickly get info and sort of avoid it. And finally, I recommend following the I recommend following something I picked up at the D school, which is take a prototyping approach, right? So how can you try things out quickly and cheaply? So do projects, go internships, or offer to help out at some companies. Or labs or projects and so on. And experiential learning, there's no substitute to experiential learning, really. You can read and read all you want, but or listen all you want, but try things out for yourself.
Vipul sir, would you like to add anything else? Something that you were saying beforehand?
I think I weighed in on this question already.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So one final question from me and Krishi. So could you tell something that I feel something which should be very important to the students of IITB is what could be the specific examples of career opportunities or career prospects or paths that students can pursue in this domain and will be open to them if they have this interdisciplinary knowledge or they are interested in areas like data analytics or data science. So in these could be examples, anything from academia or in corporate or entrepreneurship, anything.
Yeah, I'll get started. So we maybe connect a few threads that we had in the discussion today. If you're looking for research opportunities, there are plenty of options for this, right? So the whole area, the healthcare data analytics area is booming. Academic research, other research entities, there is a lot of funding that's going into research in healthcare that is powered by AI and ML. Startup ecosystem, very vibrant, right? So you can either join a startup or you could, start your own entity, right? Very vibrant ecosystem. And then when you're looking at industries that you can work in, I touched on this a little earlier. You can be working in healthcare system where healthcare systems are now undergoing a transformation. I mean, you may have about electronic medical records and so on and so forth. And what can electronic medical records do for physicians and the hospital systems to improve the quality of the care, improve the health outcomes of people? Or you can pursue careers in pharma and life sciences. You could pursue a career in health insurance companies, medical device companies, health IT companies. who are providing services to the industry. So the spectrum of industrial domains that you have is large. So the opportunities are immense, right? Whichever direction you want to go, whether you are really interested in research or you want to do your own thing by pursuing your idea, your passion, starting a company and making a difference, or if you want to join any of the industries and established companies, there are huge opportunities. I don't think there is going to be a dearth of opportunities in healthcare and health informatics moving forward, because fundamentally healthcare is a basic need, and this is an industry that needs this. The pull is there, right? And the potential for use of data analytics and digital in healthcare is going to be tremendous.
Let me add just one thing there. I think so.
Sure.
I want to talk a little bit about the other direction too, right? So once you start doing something in healthcare informatics, realize that you will always have the opportunity to go broader and then do things that are adjacent to healthcare field as well. So for example, the field of ethics and responsible AI and fairness and bias in AI, these are all things that are becoming extremely critical that every industry is beginning to think about. There'll be role for policy making. So all of those types of things also, will be wide open to you once you start to sort of, get connected with these types of problems.
Vipin sir, would you like to add anything, or should we move on to the questions from the audience?
Let's move to the questions.
For sure. So I think I suppose audience members have permission to unmute their mics. So if you could just raise your hand or even unmute them and ask your questions, or just put them in the chat box, and then me and Krishi could read them out.
Hello, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'd like to thank all three of the esteemed guests today to, take this session out of their valuable times. So my question is addressed to Rahul sir. Rahul sir, as you had said that the current time in healthcare informatics is analogous to what the internet was in the 1990s, right? So we all know Jeff Bezos started Amazon in 1990. Early 1990s, and he went for an IPO in 94, 95, right? So what similar business opportunities exist in the healthcare informatics setup currently, which can be scaled up to the level which Amazon has been scaled? So this is my question. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. I'll say this. The company that Amazon was in the 90s is very different than the company that Amazon is right now, right? And the company that Amazon was in the 90s is not what made Jeff the richest man in the world. It's actually today's company. But so Amazon itself evolved, and expect that to be the case with any health informatics company of today, right? As far as large opportunities go, we've covered plenty already in the conversation so far, right? Across the spectrum of patient care, across technologies, across landscape of industry, all the way from care to insurance to fraud detection, interoperability, and so on. Lots of things have been covered. So I don't know if I should rehash that, but remember, those are today's opportunities, right? And so and there are large opportunities there, but don't build just for those opportunities. If you're looking at startup opportunities, also build for survivability, because if you can survive, there are larger opportunities coming, and you will be in a better position to capitalize on those. So I like your analogy of Amazon, and remember, Amazon today is nothing like Amazon it was in the 90s.
Yeah.
Let me add one interesting example along the lines of what Rahul was saying. So if you look at ultrasound imaging, right, like 15 years ago, the big players in ultrasound imaging were GE, Siemens, and Philips, right, and maybe Toshiba to some extent. And so they were dominating the whole ultrasound industry. today, if you see, perhaps the biggest and the most exciting company in ultrasound is a company called Butterfly Network. And what they did was that they came up with like a really cheap, low-cost smart sensor that they could attach to a smartphone, like any Android phone or an iPhone. And now you have an ultrasound machine in everybody's hands, right? And powered by extremely high high quality data analysis. And so they have, a market share that's on par with these big players. So these types of innovations will happen. It's very, very hard to predict when and where, but the opportunity is so big and ripe for disruption that you will see a lot of this.
So yeah, that was a great addition and an example, Sandeep sir. Thank you for that. Vipin sir, would you like to add something?
Yeah, if you're asking, and great points, Rahul and Sandeep, and Rahul especially sort of saying the Amazon of today was very different from the Amazon of the 90s. But Amazon started somewhere, that is around selling books, right? Yeah. So if I sort of think about the Amazon analog, which is not necessarily for the next 5 years, but analog for Amazon in this space, I would say this is about, my hypothesis here is around personalized medicine, right? And we have a long way to go there. But the question is, how do we get there, right? And what is the starting point? The starting point is actually already here. There is a lot of work that is going on in oncology, cancer space, where the personalization of care is becoming more and more prevalent, and there are technologies like gene editing. You might want to read up on it. I mean, these are some interesting areas where really you're personalizing the treatment. So the book analogy for Amazon is in oncology, gene editing, which is really the starting point for what I see as the large revolution in personalized medicine. And again, I mean, there is a lot that needs to be done to get there. But that's one analogy I can think about in terms of an Amazon-like transformation and a revolution in healthcare.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for your addition also.
Any more questions in the audience? We would really like if you have any questions.
Hello. My question is directed to Sandeep sir. So, as you mentioned earlier, that companies do prefer having interpretability when it comes to like using black box models in their pipelines, right? So, this is especially important in some fields like finance or medicine, where you need to know what's exactly happening under the hood. So, how much are companies willing to compromise for their performance? So, like just to have interpretable models, especially Google.
Yeah, I think you are absolutely right. It is a little bit domain dependent. I think so. So in many domains, understanding that being able to explain the model, as Rahul was saying earlier, understanding sort of the causal relationship in many cases, so that you understand what is a cause and what is an effect. These are critical to being able to translate machine learning or AI-based solution into practice, and then be able to use it in real life. So there, I think this is as important, if not more important, than performance. And performance has two parts, right? Sort of how fast is something running and how accurately is something running. So, but this will become a critical ingredient that you cannot overlook. And everybody is beginning to incorporate this more and more in your AI pipelines, so that you're not evaluating a model strictly by performance in isolation of these types of factors.
Thank you.
I'd like to add something here that might be useful, which is, am I audible, by the way? Yeah, I think I am. It's an important question that was asked from the audience, and thanks, Sandeep. In many cases, you just need adequate performance. And beyond that, actually, things like interpretability are essential, right? So they're essential for practice. Sometimes they're actually legally essential. It's in the computer science world that you see, especially in the academic world, that you see this tendency to beat benchmarks, and then you want to beat SOTA, right? And so the metric you measure yourself is on some surrogate accuracy score. Remember, in the real world, ultimately you care about some business metric or some health impact metric. I'll give you an example. I think it's useful framing for you to think of. Let's say I have a screening technology, let's say for screening tuberculosis patients, right? Remember, tuberculosis diagnosis is a chain, all the way from symptomatic, screening at a community level, going back to confirmatory tests, which is nucleic acid amplification tests. And along the way, you have various screening technologies from purely symptomatic to X-ray based screening and all that. You'll have various accuracies of these things, but what does that mean for a system to choose to deploy a system? It's important to hit upon the right metric, and a useful metric in this case is, if you look at a health systems view, the cost of a case discovered, right? If I have a screening technology that is closer to the patient, right, the cost per case discovered, can that be brought down? Or can I improve the discovery rate by a certain percentage? And what is the cost for X percentage improvement? That's sort of the metric that you're trying to move here, right? It's almost never an accuracy metric or an F1 score or a sensitivity specificity metric. It's always some metric of this sort. And so you need enough of a case for such a solution to be implemented. It's not always the case that, oh, one solution is 2% better than another one, and therefore we'll go for the 2% better solution. That's almost never the case, right? You need enough to make business sense. Beyond that, it's actually the other vitals that are important. How robust is your solution? How generalizable is it, right? How scrutable is it, or explainable? Is it auditable, and is it privacy preserving? All these things are actually vitally important. You're not always trying to move. This accuracy metric is rarely the most important metric given.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir, there's one more question from Ala. If you could unmute and speak.
Hello, and good evening, everyone. And it's really pleased to see my batchmates are on the panel. I'm really glad to hear you on there. I'm talking to you from Jordan. I think I'm the only non-Indian among all the audience. So I'm very excited to see the wonderful achievement by all. In 1990, I just want to show you something which can link the East and the West. I think all of you can see. What is this?
Typewriter?
Typewriter.
I typed my BTech project, which is next to myself, on a typewriter before submitting it for my thesis. That was 1992, 93, before I graduated. Now, we're talking about a visual meeting, bridging gaps. I think it was taking a letter to reach home 3 to 4 weeks. Now we are talking about fraction of milliseconds. I think what's happening nowadays, which I feel I'm in I would call it from the third world countries, the gap, there is a lot between what's today's technology and what we really need. Honestly, I find there is a big gap with what common man can learn or use with the technology within chemicals, within healthcare. And I think in Jordan, I speak loudly, we have a very poor healthcare system. Even with people dying with COVID and all these technologies, which we are talking about it, but still there is a big gap between the implementation of the technology on the real floor. We keep on developing. I think the students need to be aware that commercialization of this technology is very important to reach the people and in the villages, and where whatever the technology we do, but if it doesn't reach to the down-to-earth people, we are serving the rich few than the major science. So my message to all the students, please take care of applying the technology to the majority, not doing it as a science project where, really speaking, it will always be limited to the rich systems. So, and I can echo Rahul's work on the number of projects he's been involved with, the social projects, which is quite wonderful. And IITians, please make sure that that soul with your care and work project is very important to take it forward. Don't lose with the technology with these people. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to see you all, and I wish you all the success. Thank you.
Thank you, Ala. It's really nice to see you as well. Ala was in the same batch as Sandeep and me in IIT Bombay, and really wonderful words of wisdom there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ala.
Any more questions from the audience? We'll just wait for a few minutes then. Yeah, Anurag, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, it's great to see everyone here. I'm going to turn on the camera too. So just like Ala, I'm also a classmate of Sandeep and Vipin. What I found really interesting is like the focus on all the relevant skills and where you need to prepare yourself. That was very, very informational. I have lots of nephews and nieces who are also looking for their first gig, and so very informational. I'll pass it on to them. So thank you for that, guys. And also one comment about the comment that just was made by Ala around technology and how it can bridge the gap between those who can afford higher price treatments and medicines and what is needed. And I've been sort of serving the pharma sector for a while. So there is a definition of market that some of the pharma companies have. And typically Africa, parts of Asia, and certain regions of the world were often considered to be not the tier 1 markets, right? Simply because of the affordability, and they have to, in the end, it's a business, right? And they have to have an ROI for their clinical trials and investments that they're making in R&D. What has changed, though, is technology and the economic growth and affordability in these parts of the world. In, I would say, last 10 to 15 years, there's a significant change. And I'm aware of at least one company started by my colleagues from Bristol Myers Squibb called Tech, TECH, number 4, Care for All. So that's the plug I wanted to just make, like, for those who are looking for how technology can be used. It's a nonprofit. They focus mostly on sub-Saharan Africa and other parts of the world where technology can bridge that gap, and lots of information and access can be provided and improved for the medicines and other sort of products that they need. So check it out. I'll put it on the chat as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Anurag. I just wanted to sort of comment on the two comments from Ala and Anurag, which is around access. Access to a large section of the world population. I think that thanks to both of them for bringing this up. The role of technology in enabling access is also something that is going to be hugely impactful moving forward. And Sandeep gave an example of earlier on about sort of enabling access through digital technologies, right? And thinking about it broadly and say, how do we use technology to bring healthcare to a large fraction of the population around the world who may not have access to care today? And I also touched upon patient being in the center, right? Bringing care to the patient. So again, that's a huge theme that I think all of you certainly should keep in mind, and I think there is a huge opportunity to make a difference there. And going back to the notion of purpose in healthcare, healthcare offers significant purpose for people who are involved in this space, and that purpose may mean different things to different people. And if your purpose is around making a difference to the underserved populations of the world, that is certainly a huge opportunity. So great points. Thanks to both of them for bringing that up.
Yeah. So like any more questions from the audience? Else we could conclude the session. Any concluding remarks from any of the three speakers?
Yeah. So let me start quickly. First of all, I really enjoyed this. This was fantastic. I'm unfortunately could not see all of you students who are listening, but I'm really glad that you are considering something like this. I want to wish you sort of the very best as you decide and move forward in your careers. I learned a great deal from Vipin and Rahul in this session, so thoroughly enjoyed it. I think my sort of the last comment I will share is something that one of my managers in GE once told me, that there are a lot of different things you can do. There's only one thing you should not do, which is continue to do what you have always done. Right. So always sort of have this mindset of trying something new, exploring things, rolling up your sleeves, experimenting, and then finding wherever that path leads you. But future is really, really bright in this area, and you will have a fantastic journey as you sort of find your way. So good luck, and it was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, it was the same. It was my pleasure as well, and of course I'm geographically close by, so don't hesitate to ping if I can be of any help. But yeah, healthcare is one of those rich fields where there are big problems, where technology can make a difference, where there are large underserved populations, and where the human story is very, very powerful, right? It is, and the challenges are not purely technological. So I do not want you guys to be naive about that, right? But it needs smart people to solve the problem. And remember, it is an acknowledged global development goal to improve healthcare for our populations. So you are taking up a worthy goal, and lots of opportunity to explore, try things out. You can spend more than a lifetime in trying to solve healthcare. So don't be daunted by the challenge. And there are friendly souls out there you can rely on. There's also a village to support you. So please draw on that, and all power to you.
Well, again, thank you for having me on the panel today. It was such a pleasure to be with my esteemed colleagues, Rahul and Sandeep on the panel. And thank you for the interaction and discussion today. I'm really excited that IIT Bombay is offering this opportunity to its students. And I think that is a valuable opportunity that you have in front of you. Wish I had that opportunity when we went to IIT 30 years ago. Because when having spent a significant amount of time in this field and in multiple industries in this field, I do think this is going to be a valuable skill set that you will get by going through the coursework and opportunities that you have in front of you. My advice to you is, there isn't too many areas which is valuable you have an opportunity to learn and grow. You have an opportunity to make an impact, and you have an opportunity to make an impact for yourself and the society and the community in a fashion that healthcare offers you. And healthcare has a lot of very important and relevant problems that are waiting to be solved. And I can't think of a better group than the group on this call to solve these problems. And this is such a brilliant, outstanding group. I think groups like you are well positioned to solve very meaningful problems in healthcare and by extension, meaningful problems for humanity moving forward. So I wish you all the best, and please feel free to reach out anytime. You can connect with me through LinkedIn if you need any advice or guidance. I'm always available to help or answer any questions. So I wish you again all the best.
I'm really thankful for all the three esteemed guests who were a part of the Vipin sir, Rahul sir, Sandeep sir for their words of wisdom and experience. I would also like to thank Rekha Koita ma'am and Professor Ganesh Ramakrishnan, who were a support and without whom this webinar or this panel discussion wouldn't have taken place. I would like to thank my co-host Divyashree and our undergraduate academic council for their support and guidance. And finally, I would like to thank the patient audience who was there with us completely and the very good questions asked by them. And really thankful for everyone. I would like Rekha ma'am and Ganesh sir if they want to say something.
First of all, on behalf of all the faculty members, I would like to thank our respected guests, Sandeep, Vipin, and Rahul, for sparing their valuable time. Very exciting. We had a very interesting session yesterday, and I think this is just a feast for us, for the faculty members of this, who just helped catalyze this entire program. I'd also like to thank Rekha for mobilizing this entire panel discussion as an appetizer for what's going to come. The students are very soon going to get a list of the projects for the dual degree program. This was a very good appetizer. And again, sincere thanks to the audience for bringing up very interesting and relevant questions. Over to you, Rekha.
Thank you, Ganesh. And first of all, thank you very much, Sandeep, Vipin, and Rahul. I myself found this session, I think it was both insightful, very rich discussions, and I think it was very inspirational for the students, to, especially some of the concluding remarks kind of really summarized everything so well, that there are big problems, and what better group to work on such problems and help in this area. So thank you very much, all three of you, for taking out time on this Sunday. Thank you to the audience. A very big thank you to both Divyashree and Krishi, our hosts for today, who have put in a lot of effort in preparing for the session and working through all the questions and doing all the promotions, reaching out to students. A big thank you to both of you too. And thank you so much to the audience. Thank you, Ganesh, for supporting us so much and helping us with this initiative, and to the entire core team. We're really excited, and looking forward to taking this initiative ahead. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Completely our pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good day.
You.
Bye.
Have a good night for those in the US. Good day. Thanks, Krishi and Devyashree.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.